Welcome to Bean and Bracket Factory, and welcome to episode 6 of the Epic, which is the Wragg Austin 7 Special Front Suspension project. Now, in episode 5, I think it was, I made the track rod and track rod arms, and this episode I'm focusing on the drag link arm and how it attaches to the upright, to the stub axle, etc, etc, etc. So let's get to it. Right, so I've now got the stub axle on the bench, and you notice it's got the back plate on it. Now, I thought I'd better put the back plate on to see if it fitted, and guess what? Just like the rear brakes, rear suspension, it didn't. So I've had to milled this out, which is fine because this is really thick. It's 5mm thick, so I've taken off a couple of mil there. So that now slots in there like that. So this is obviously the bit that we're looking at. Now, as I've already said, I'm getting rid of that, mainly because it's too short, secondly because it's too weedy. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to have something far more like that, sticking out there at that angle, at 45 degrees in fact. 90 degrees. So I need to make a part which bolts onto there, which has a hole for that goes through there like that, and it has to be offset slightly. Well, about 5mm needs to be offset, or 7mm, or whatever. So I thought about it in my head, and this is it. This is it. This is the design, mainly that. Okay, and it's hiding inside this piece of metal. So I've got about 10 machining operations to turn that into that. So here goes nothing. Step 1 complete, and that is to mill off a 10mm slice. Don't know how long it took me, quite a while. The cuts are about 1/2mm cuts, and it takes 4 passes, so you can imagine, do the maths. Next step is to do the same on the other side. Right, so this has now been milled on both sides, and on this side I've marked out a point just there, and that's where I'm going to put a hole in it so that I can put the shaft, one of these, through that hole. So it's going to be it's actually going to be a 9/16 hole with a 45-degree chamfer on it to accept that chamfer there. So I'm going to do it on a 4-jaw chuck, which is going to be quite interesting because it's quite lopsided, so it's going to have to be very slow, I think. So that's the next operation. That operation went all right. The hole doesn't go all the way through because I couldn't drill it all the way through because it would have hit the 4-jaw chuck. So I'm going to finish off that in the mill. I'm going to drill through, and I'm going to make it wider to, it's currently 1/2 inch. I'm going to make it wider to 9/16. But this, as it happens, that goes in there like that, and you can start to see how this is going to work now. So I think what I'm going to do is just take a chamfer off that, just to neaten it up a bit, and then I'm going to work on the bit that sticks out there like that. I'm not going to stick something on there, I'm going to machine all this away so a bit sticks out like that. So that's the next job. Chamfer now cut on there, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove this bit with a saw across there, and the bit that sticks out is going to be turned down initially to 20mm, and then down to 9/16 and then down to 1/2 inch off the end with the threaded end on the end. So that's going to be turned down, so it basically goes through that hole like that. That's the plan anyway. So now I'm going to basically get on the bandsaw and chop this bit out. A bit of bandsawing later, and that's come off, that's come off, that's come off, and I'm left with that. So back in the four-jaw chuck now to start machining this piece here. It's now in the chuck, and I've put this length of 20mm bar in the tailstock so that I can line it all up and I can work out exactly where this 20mm section is going to be. So what I need to do is machine all of this out here and face off this edge here down to 20mm, and then I can start working on the taper, the 9/16 and the 1/2 inch and the thread. And I have to do all of that while it's still in the chuck, because obviously it's a four jaw. The minute I take it out, then I've kind of lost the precise accuracy of the center line. So time to start machining. So I've pretty much finished this operation on the mill. I've obviously turned that down to 9/16, put that 45-degree chamfer, turned down to 1/2 inch, cut the threads, which are 1/2 inch BSF. So now it's time to take it out the lathe. Once it's out, it's out. There's no more tweaking with this. So I've measured it, and I'm hoping it's actually going to fit in. Right, it's out the lathe, and time to fit it in. So the plan is, notice on here there's a straight line, a kind of ridge. The plan is that that engages in the ridge like that and locks it. It's now locked and it can't rotate. So put that on there. That works quite nicely. And if I put that in there like that, you can see how it's what I had in mind all along. Now I'm basically going to have one of these going through there, and as you can see, there's not enough room on the back for a nut, so that is why the whole thing is being machined offset. So what I'm going to do, I've already got 4mm space there, and this is 29mm. That's 24mm, so I can take 5mm off the back of there. That gives me almost 10mm to stick a nut on the back, which is ample really. Worst case scenario, I can just mill a tiny bit out of this back plate, which is no biggie. So next operation is to take this hole out properly on the mill all the way through and to 9/16, and then mill some space on the back of this thing for the nut. Crack on. So this is now being machined down, so this width has been machined down, and I've actually got sitting in here one of the steering arms, but of course I won't have a steering arm in there, it's all the same size. I'm going to have my drag link arm, so over here sitting in the lathe I'm starting to make my drag link arm, machined down that under already, so I'm just going to put a slight taper on this, and then yeah, do a bit more machining, and we'll see how that turns out. So here it is. This is the drag link arm, which is the replacement for that. As you can see, it is quite considerably longer, 2 inches longer in fact. So obviously this fits into here like that, and that goes on there like that, and get my big plumber's spanner and give it a bit of a nip. Like that. Well, it's almost finished. The only thing I do need to do is put a tapered hole in there. Now, this is the ball joint. It goes from 3/8 to 7/16 taper, and it's the official taper size, which is standard for all of these steering tapers, is 1.5 inch in 11, which is 1 in 8. A 1 in 8 gradient. There you go. so I've got a tool coming from America to remount that into a taper. So that's the only thing I need to do to that. And of course, this then bolts onto, let me see, onto there, like that. And the whole thing bolts onto the back plate, and I've machined away this back plate so it fits. So all I need to do now is stick it on the car. So here it is, bolted to the car now. Obviously this is the drag link. Drag link sits in there like that. As you can see, if I now play with the track rod, it goes backwards and forwards. So it's got plenty of clearance for the bottom of the nut underneath there, which is what I needed. That's why this is all offset. So quite pleased with that. So I think that's about wraps it up for this week. Still got plenty to do, of course. I've got to put the taper in that to finish that off. I also have to make all the missing suspension from the other side to weld everything up. I also need to work out how I'm going to attach the dampers to the axle. It's a bit of an outstanding issue. I've got different detail on each side, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do next week. I may, given that the only outstanding issue now for this is the damper attachment, I might focus on that next week. So, but you'll have to tune in to find out what I do focus in on. So that's all for now, and thank you for watching.